Find the derivative of y equals the square root of 1 plus x plus cosine 4x minus cosine x squared. Then evaluate y prime as 0. Y here is the square root of an entire expression. 1 plus x plus cosine of 4x minus the cosine of x squared. The first thing to do is to rewrite that as a fractional exponent for that square root. So we'll rewrite the entire inside. And it's raised to the first power and second root, so 1/2 power. Since the entire thing is to the 1/2 power, the 1/2 power is the outermost function. For the derivative, y prime, which will also be able to be called dy dx, we'll start with the power rule. We'll bring the power down, 1/2. We'll leave the inside alone, 1 plus x plus cosine of 4x minus cosine of x squared. Subtract 1 from the power, I will call it minus 2/2. But since what's inside is not just an x, but rather an entire expression, we have to multiply by the derivative of the inside for the chain rule. We have several terms that are combined by addition or subtraction. Derivative of 1 is 0. Derivative of 1x is a 1. Plus the derivative of the cosine, which is negative sine of 4x. But since the inside of that cosine is not just an x, but rather a 4x, we have to multiply by the derivative of its own inside. So it's negative sine of 4x times the derivative of 4x, which is a 4. And then we have minus, and we have the derivative of cosine, which again is negative sine. Leave its inside alone, and then the derivative of its inside, which will be a 2x. So we have a double chain rule here, because we have outermost function 1/2 power. Inside of that was an entire expression, and within that expression we had trig functions of their own insides. We had a 4x and an x squared inside of the cosines here, and so it was a double chain rule for those two terms. And so notice that we multiplied by the derivative of their insides here. That's why we have a 4 there and a 2x there. Let's simplify the look of our expression here. So we have 1/2. We have 1 plus x plus cosine of 4x minus the cosine of x squared to the 1 minus 2, negative 1 over 2. And then times this with a 1. That 4 can move in front of the sign, so 1 minus 4 sine of 4x. And then the 2x can move in front of the other sign, but we have a minus a negative, that's a plus 2x sine of x squared. That negative exponent is going to move to the denominator. So all of this will move to the denominator. That means it's going to move down there with the 2. All of this will stay in the numerator, and it will multiply the 1 that's in the numerator of the 1/2. And so that will give us 1 minus 4 sine 4x plus 2x sine x squared, all divided by 2 times 1 plus x plus cosine of 4x minus cosine of x squared raised to the positive 1/2 power, now that it's moved to the denominator with the 2. Positive 1/2 means first power and second root, or just square root. Let's rewrite that. 1 minus 4 sine 4x plus 2x sine x squared, all divided by 2 times the square root of 1 plus x plus cosine of 4x plus minus cosine of x squared. The next thing to do is evaluate y prime as 0. Y prime of 0 means to plug a 0 in for each of the x's. So we will have 1 minus 4 sine of 4 times 0 plus 2 times 0 times the sine of 0 squared. All this divided by 2 times the square root of 1 plus 0 plus the cosine of 4 times 0 minus the cosine of 0 squared. In the numerator, we will have 1 minus 4 sine of 4 times 0 is the same as sine of 0, plus 2 times 0, which is 0, and then sine of 0 squared is 0. All of this over 2 times the square root of 1 plus 0 plus the cosine of 0, 4 times 0 is 0, and then minus the cosine of 0, 0 squared is 0. The sine of 0 is a 0, so in the numerator we will have 1 minus 4 times a 0 plus a 0 times a 0. And the cosine of 0 is a 1, so in the denominator we will have 2 times the square root of 1 plus 0 plus 1 and then minus 1. So in the numerator we will have 1 minus, well, 4 times 0 is a 0, plus 0 times 0, which is also a 0. All this divided by 2 times the square root of 1 plus 0 is 1, plus another one's 2, minus a 1 is a 1. 1 minus 0 plus 0 is just a 1. The square root of 1 is a 1. We have 1 over 2 times 1, or 1 over 2.